Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, members of the Roll the Tape film crew. I have to talk about this because of the author of these words that you see on your screen right now. Yeah, I'm talking about Rick Glaser. Now, many of you remember when he was here, live and living color on this platform, when he was sent over here to debate me. It started out as a healthy dialogue between two men actively involved in the business of boxing. But the conversation and dialogue quickly took a left turn because of some of the things that Rick Glaser has said. Now, we all know at this point, Rick Glaser is a glorified matchmaker, very overhyped. We know these things. We also know that a lot of content creators, particularly the ones that don't like me, particularly the ones who have insulted me, particularly the ones who be hating on me, and particularly the ones who refuse to come on this platform before the Roll the Tape family and sit on that hot seat so the prosecutor can ask them some questions. Most of them receive their information. Let me reframe that. Receive their misinformation from Rick Glaser. Anything involving the PBC or any of the fighters that compete under the banner of PBC, Al Heyman is always in the name, in the mouth of Rick Glaser. When PBC was going broke, right? We heard that from content creators, didn't we, y'all? But you know where they got that information from, right? They try to make it seem like they had inside sources. Y'all remember that? But behind the scenes, they were getting information from Rick Glaser. When Tank Davis fought Hector Garcia, and y'all remember this because Rick Glaser said it to me in my face here on this platform. He said they sold under 60,000 pay-per-view buys. And you heard that being repeated by the content creators who don't like me. No proof, no evidence, no documentation to substantiate these claims. But yet and still, Rick Glaser make these statements. Rick Glaser got mad because he recognized early on that I was backing him in the corner. He recognized from one businessman in the sport of boxing to another businessman in the sport of boxing that I was setting up a trap to get him out of there. He recognized it. And instead of him standing up tall like a man and standing 10 toes down on a statement that he made, he created an atmosphere of yelling, insulting me, and trying to intimidate me with the tactic of deflection and manipulating the audience by trying to convince you all that he was so annoyed and agitated that he just had to remove himself from the very environment that he created. And the truth of the matter is this. Rick Glaser made a statement, excuse me, about PBC fighters competing in the ring once a year. I'm giving you a flashback. Some of you that were here and many of you that were not a part of the Roll the Tape family and was not here. I'm introducing this to you so that you can understand the foundation I'm laying for the recent tweet that Rick Glaser posted that's on your screen. Rick Glaser said, his words not mine, that PBC fighters fight once a year. And that's bad for business. And we heard content creators using that same talking point about PBC fighters. You know where they got that from, don't you? Rick Glaser. And when Rick Glaser presented that to me, you know what I told Rick? And you know I have the evidence. You know I own the content. You know I can regurgitate it and put it out there again to remind you of what was said. But just for the scope of this video, I'm condensing it so that you can understand my foundation that I'm laying for this new tweet. I said, Rick, since you keep praising Bob Arum and Top Rank, how come you didn't, basically what I was saying to him, how come you didn't say all of this and make any of these claims about Terrence Crawford when he fought several times under Top Rank's banner once a year? And I told him, I said, Terrence Crawford fought Kell Brook, and a whole entire year went by and he didn't compete again in the ring until he fought a year later when he fought Sean Porter. And you know what Rick Glaser's response to me was? That's not true. Before I pointed that out to Rick, excuse me, Rick Glaser asked me a question. He said, name a fighter that Al Heyman and PBC brought up from the ground up and made them a superstar. And I said in response, quickly too, didn't even have to think about it, because I wasn't expecting him to ask me that. I quickly responded and said, Gervonta Tank Davis. And you know what Rick Glaser's response to me was? Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, members of the Roll the Tape film crew, Rick Glaser said, that's correct. So now we see that Rick Glaser is using a personal vendetta that he has against Al Heyman for the last 25 plus years. And every opportunity he gets, he either insult or berate Al Heyman, PBC fighters, or the business practices of PBC, Tom Brown and Al Heyman, which he really has no knowledge of. And in this tweet, he's doing the same thing. He used a reference that Tank Davis is now 30 years old. And the best fighter that he ever beat was Jose Pedraza, and that was 8 years ago. I'm going to tell you right now that's not true. But you know what's interesting about that? Watch this. Tank Davis, according to Rick Glaser, since he pointed it out, fought Jose Pedraza 8 years ago, right? And he won that fight, right? He's being criticized for fighting Jose Pedraza as allegedly the best opponent that he's had, which was 8 years ago. But didn't Keyshawn Davis fight Jose Pedraza recently, as of last year? So Keyshawn Davis gets credit for fighting and beating a much older Jose Pedraza because he's with Bob Arum in Top Rank. But yet, because Tank Davis is with Al Heyman at PBC, he gets criticized when he beat Pedraza. But Pedraza is older when he fought Keyshawn than he was when he fought Tank Davis. Y'all see where this is going? Another thing that Rick Glaser said. It looks like Tank is following that PBC script perfectly. Very safe opponents and only fighting once this year. Tank gets arrested more often than he actually fights. Now, Rick Glaser is talking about this script of Tank fighting safe opponents. Every professional boxer, past, present, and even in the future, will and have always fought safe fights. That's the nature of the business. So why is Rick Glaser, who quote unquote is a matchmaker, criticizing Tank Davis? That's interesting to me. Rick Glaser is a matchmaker who is licensed by commission, excuse me. And on top of that, he's employed by promoters to overmatch opponents. His job is to make sure the A side is competing against safe opponents, to protect the entrance and the longevity of the promoter, right? But here it is. He's criticizing Tank Davis and PBC for these quote-unquote safe opponents that Tank Davis has fought. That's interesting to me. When majority of the opponents that Tank Davis fought, a lot of fighters that's in the 135-pound division right now couldn't beat half of the people that Tank beat. That's just my opinion. Okay, moving right along. He said only fighting once a year. Most of the superstars fight once a year. Once again, didn't Terrence Crawford fight once a year? Let me use his reference. Let me use a reference again. Terrence Crawford fought Errol Spence in July of 2023, correct? Okay. When was Terrence Crawford last fight, y'all? August of 2024. Didn't Terrence Crawford fight once a year? Did Rick Glaser get on Twitter or social media and criticize Terrence Crawford for fighting once a year? Oh, okay. I'm just asking the question. I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, okay. And last but not least, Rick Glaser did the same thing to Tank Davis in this tweet that he did to me. He made it personal, right? And he threw an insult and threw a shot at Tank Davis, just like Rick Glaser did to me. And he said that Tank Davis gets arrested more. I mean, y'all see it on your screen, y'all. When the last time Tank Davis got arrested? And what difference does it make? What does that have to do with boxing? The man is fighting Lamont Roach Jr. And here it is. Rick Glaser comes out of the clear blue sky to criticize PBC, Tank Davis, and Al Heyman. As always. I mean, if this is not jealousy, I don't know what is. Rick Glaser, unfortunately, is the epitome of a hater. Anytime a grown man, as old as Rick Glaser is, can walk around and say he's so happy with the 40 plus fighters that he is in business with, and his multiple businesses are extremely successful. These are the things that he told me, y'all, when he was here. All these great things that he has going on. But yet he's carrying the burden of a 25-year grudge of another man who's not paying him any attention, who's not making any public or private statements about him, who's not insulting him, who's not disrespecting him, and who's really ignoring him. But every time he gets on someone's platform, remember I said someone's platform because he don't have a platform of his own. He's taking the time investing in hating in Al Heyman, PBC, and Tank Davis and the rest of the PBC fighters. Rick Glaser spent more time promoting PBC fighters, and Al Heyman by dissing them publicly than he does promoting these 40-something fighters that he claimed that he represent. Name a fighter that Rick Glaser actually represent that you heard him talk about in the last 30 days. Come on, y'all. He got 40-something fighters that he's working with. This shouldn't take y'all too long to answer that question. Okay, then. There you have it. And guess what? You know Rick Glaser blocked me. But you know, all of the roller tape film crew members, they know what's up when it comes down to me putting people on the hot seat over here as the prosecutor. So they send me certain information, like this tweet right here, so I can address it and deal with it from the perspective of the business of boxing. And if Rick Glaser is listening to this, or whoever cool with him listening to this, send him this video and tell him I said, come see me. I want to ask him a question about something. Tell him to come over here and see me. I guarantee you he won't. And guess what? The question I got to ask him, we need answers.